Hello and welcome to the Dogtooth Podcast. I just want to do a quick introduction on what the Dogtooth Podcast is, and then I'll get on introducing our guests. So the Dogtooth Podcast is basically me chatting with my network, my friends, business colleagues, and interesting people. So not everyone on here I know very well, but some people will be just my friends. I'm hoping to tease out some interesting things, but essentially what this will be a creative business podcast. Not for creative specifically. It will be various different types of people, from fitness through to manufacturing, with artists in there as well. But it will be generally a business-focused podcast, so it's not going to be necessarily about mindset or fitness or manufacturing. It'll be about all the thread that holds it together, and over time I'm hoping that I will be able to create a sort of a document that will help small business operators, people who are looking to come out of a corporate gig and turn them their passion into a business. That is my passion. I'm fortunate that when I was very young I kind of chose a career based on a few things, but we can get into over the time with these podcasts. But ultimately, I chose to be a designer. I followed that path, and eventually I am now, I've been running my own business for 20 plus years, and I love my daily life. Do I want to improve? Do I want to make a bigger impact in life? Of course I do. And that's part of this podcast journey as well. So if you'd like to join me on the Dogtooth Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Dogtooth Podcast. With me today is my friend James, and he is at the Prison Lawyer on Instagram if you want to give him a follow. I thought we'd kind of have a deep dive into sort of how we met, what our mutual sort of our mutual passions are. And then sort of dig into some other stuff. So, James, obviously you are a Scot, so people will have to put their Scottish ears on and listen to you. But we met via Instagram, so we were essentially Instagram friends first, and then in real life we met and we went on a road trip together, and obviously since then we've chatted regularly, especially in our WhatsApp group as well. So would you like to do a little introduction on yourself and explain sort of why we're here essentially?
Okay, I think the first time we didn't meet, we met professionally, in that we have obviously a common friend, AJ, who you had done some work for and were selling t-shirts, and I bought a Viking Trooper t-shirt from you.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And the most interesting part of the interaction was the attention to detail, because I bought it online, had no expectations as to when it was coming, because this is 2012, 2013 maybe, and it didn't come, but it wasn't late. It just didn't arrive in that Amazon sort of time scale. And you sent a big apology in saying, I was actually on holiday, I'm really sorry, and here's a whole bunch of stickers to make up for it, which I always thought was a sort of a nice touch. But I think it was at that point I then managed to join the dots as to the connections between people. I think it was at that point we then started interacting online, even just from sort of liking posts and discussing sort of common interests in terms of cars and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think, it must have been around about 2012, 2013, I think.
Yeah, I think it was quite a while ago. I remember the first time that I ever met you. So obviously we'd interacted on Instagram, but the first time I ever met you was at the London to Tokyo. So when was that? That was like 2018, was it something?
That was 2018.
Yeah.
And we'd been speaking for a good number of years from that point.
Yeah.
But the common connection in terms of Instagram started off being sort of Gumball and car rallies and cars and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think that was where the original connection came.
Yeah, because
we come from professionally, I suppose, two different worlds. In that, I suppose my day-to-day employment or business is I'm a lawyer. I work with those who have committed crime and who are spending time within prison who require my assistance either with the problems in prison or the attempting to return to society in that sense, which is sort of very different from the sort of art world in which you operate within. So it was the common denominator was sort of cars, and I suppose cars, graffiti, those sorts of things, the things that we got discussing at the time.
Yeah, because you're whilst you have a very serious job, you're also quite creative on you're in your sort of your sideline, which is photography. You've got a passion for photography, and I think again that's another thing that we probably sort of mutual bond over was the car photography, etc. Because if I remember rightly, you did some like early car photography for Gumball. I think when it came into Scotland, did it? What year was that?
In 2014, they landed at Prestwick Airport I think they'd come in from New York and were on the way to Ibiza then.
Right.
I think. And yeah, that was the first time I took photographs of Gumball coming through. It was the year that I think Deadmau5 was on with the
Ferrari,
or it was, and there was the Velvet Phantom or Rolls Royce on it, and John Olsen had his car on it.
Yeah, was it the RS the RS6? That one was that the one? Because he had the Audi as well.
The RS6.
Sorry.
So that year I'd done it, taken photographs of them landing at Prestwick Airport, and I'd sort of followed on slightly behind on the way back up from Prestwick Airport to Glasgow on their way to Edinburgh in that sense.
Yeah.
And then 2016, I think they rolled through again. It was a year after, a few months after Sebastian was born, they came through in the early part of the summer. I think when they were doing Dublin to Bucharest, I think.
Right.
And I took photographs there, stood on the motorway taking photographs and did them. And then 2018 would have been the next time in London.
Yeah,
where we met up very briefly. I took photographs there. 2019, I went to Barcelona to watch them roll through Barcelona. And then 2023, we did Edinburgh.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. So those are the times I've managed to go and take photographs of Gumball.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not in an official capacity, but
but
have on occasion sort of had the press pass to get inside the ropes and get closer to the cars and the people, which is really what makes it easier than standing from the outside. Looking in.
We've had a few discussions, I think, about like in terms of photography, is like what you enjoy is that sort of that people shot, the reportage kind of things of like street photography and getting people doing things whereas I would probably gravitate myself more towards like the arty static shot of the car, of the machine rather than the people. But obviously, you do need both on something like this because it isn't just the cars and it isn't just the people; it's the combination of the both of them, right?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of my photography is entirely a hobby. In that the day-to-day of my life is quite full on. It can be quite dark because of the subject matter, and you need something to extract yourself away from that. And the photography was always something I maybe did on holiday or something like that. And that's where the idea of street photography comes in, because actually when you're on holiday you can take photos of people, you don't feel embarrassed. I'd be less inclined to go into Glasgow city centre and want to start doing street photography there, but it's easier to maybe do on holiday, where what's the worst that happens? Somebody's rude to you in a different language and you just smile and walk on, as opposed to maybe something more local. But again, it's just an escape from what I do. I've I've discussed this with you. I've toyed with ideas of I could give it all up and go and be a photographer, but I'm not entirely certain that's what I would want to do from a career perspective, because it is very much the thing I enjoy to get away from.
Like a passion.
The norm. Yeah. And it's through having that discussion in my mind and some discussions with you about saying, okay, do I try to make a business of this? If I'm honest, I don't want to go take pictures of people's weddings.
Yeah.
Or the pictures of their children when they're born, or these other things that you can do. I know there's lots of things with photography that you do, but in order to start, you have to start somewhere. Yeah. And so it very much came, really what I want to do is just take photos of cars, but more importantly, cars and people. Because it's all fine, well, going to these static shows where people show up and show their cars off and they're not moving, they're just sitting there and everybody takes a photo. But you go back onto Instagram, you post your picture, and then you scroll through and you go, oh, somebody else took that photo.
Yeah.
Just from a different angle. But it's all very samey. And Edinburgh is a really good example of that, because I think in the furthest pen, there were 2, if not 3 different pens of cars. And in the furthest pen, there was a telephone exchange box or an electricity box in the middle of the street. And everybody, I very early on climbed on the top and took this photo when there was only a few cars. And as the day went on, other people must have stood right exactly on top, took exactly the same photo. So I scrolled through Instagram and saw my one, which was I suppose the early days where there was only 3 or 4 cars. And then there was ones of later on the day where there was a whole row and actually was a much better photograph than the one I'd taken. So it's all very samey in a sense. But London was a good example. Again, I went down a rabbit hole with these pictures the other day because of something in our WhatsApp group. And I was seeing my pictures of London. And in fact, I stood outside the hotel for a long time. And our mutual friend Jordan pulled up in Ethel. And I've got a photo of him in and around his car. I've got another photo of Josh Cartou's car of that year, I think a Ferrari with a great livery, parked outside the hotel with all of them standing behind it, just interacting. And it was much more than just the car. It was about the people. The actual subject of the photograph were the people rather than the car. The car was a sideshow to the actual people. And that's what kind of interests me in that sense.
Yeah. There's some
and then there's the other type. Then there's the other types of photography that come out of the Gumball, right? Which are it's the portrait photography of people.
Yeah.
But it's not the standard issue portrait photography, stand there and this and that. It's portrait photography and actually kind of doing things and interacting. And I managed to capture a couple of them which I really quite liked. I've got one that I really do like, which is just somebody, I think, watching the DJ or the screen and the light was falling, and I like that one. And I had another portrait of, I can't remember who it was, but it comes from the wing mirror of a Range Rover, so it's a big wing mirror. Yeah. So you got the whole, you get the portrait of the individual in the reflection of the wing mirror, and it's probably one I would, if I was to print one in frame, that's what I would do. So it's all kind of that sort of stuff that I'm interested in. I don't want people to pose for my portrait, stand there and pose. I want people to sort of take these sort of street photography type portraits of people interacting with each other and capturing moments. And that's what excites me in that sense.
Obviously I've looked through all your photographs for that London one, and there is some like really cool like standout ones. I can't remember the names of the people to be able to do that, but there's that one where there's a chap who is, I think he's a Finnish chap, and he's sat with his back against some railings or something with a bottle of beer or something down there. You know, that's a really cool shot. I think there's a good one of Eve in there. There's some really cool images in that bunch of photographs that you took from that weekend. Obviously, I'm there as well. So
yeah, it was a good day, and it you could buzz about Covent Garden, and it was good to see, and it took a long time for them to come through, so you eventually did see everything. Yeah. You didn't have to wait to the end. You could walk along the line and see all the cars and see all the people that you needed to see in that sense. It was good.
Yeah.
It was a good day out.
Yeah.
But we have mutual friends. We have mutual friends or a mutual friend who takes photographs of Gumball whenever they want him to do it, and he is the goat
Rich.
in
We're
that
talking about
sense.
Rich, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah. You pick up the annual,
Yeah.
and from whenever he started, the vast majority of the photographs onwards from there are his.
Yeah.
In that sense, and there's no beating the eye that this man has. And we spent a week traveling with these guys, and I was in the same situation as he was, broadly with the same gear, looking at the same thing, and the photographs were completely different in every respect, in absolutely every respect. And it was like, how's he doing this? And I suppose I think I remember sort of almost insulting him by saying, what magic do you have in that camera? In the sense that you must have magic dust, right? But that's kind of, it probably is really insulting to somebody who does it professionally, because the reality is it's entirely him and entirely the eye that he has for what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I think when I look at photography, I would like to be like that. Just everything that I see that he does is just hits that sort of chord with me in that sense.
Yeah,
and whether it's Gumball or anything else, it's still the same. It still hits the same chord. Because again, the photographs he has of when he was with Pritchard and Dayton doing Gumball, there's the Death Valley shot where they're in the middle of the road and it's all been sort of staged, and I think it's a postman actually up in the corner. But there's other sort of candid sort of portraits of those guys, and you just go, you could feel the energy of what it was all about, just oozing out the photograph.
Yeah, it is
in a way that's sometimes in a way that video doesn't. In that sense.
Yeah. I think that with it, I think there's two elements, right? There's eye or judgment. Like creativity is about judgment, essentially, and there maybe is an intrinsic ability to do that. But I actually also think a lot of it's just trained, right? It's rules, regulations, like proportions, the rule of thirds, all that kind of stuff, and then experimentation. So when we were in somewhere, I can't even remember, was it in Italy? And Rich got his camera out, and he had a flash, and he had a piece of paper that was bent over the top, and then he would basically go like, take your photograph and then twist the camera, and then you got this like lovely light sort of like going around the portrait of the person. And so that's experimentation. So it's like it's doing the 10,000 hours of seeing what's good, what's interesting. Like the more times you click the shutter, the more and you're the more proactive looking, the more the more you improve your eyes, right? And then it gets to that point where you also get that creative bit that you can experiment with and make more from it. And again, same with your photography. The cool stuff are the ones that are slightly different as well. So that's like experimentation. And I think that ultimately photography is a game of that, right? There is obviously documentary photography. There is all these kind of things, and they're all the way. But I think what Rich sees is that he's got that eye through repetition.
Yeah, and he also likes to climb up things and come at it from a different angle rather than just here or down low or up. His up high is up here.
Yeah.
The down low is like crawling on the ground sort of thing. It's fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah, I think I was taught.
And it is all about spending the time and doing it and having the time to do it. But for me, it's often about having the subject matter. So often the camera doesn't come out as much as it should because, as I say, go on holiday, I've got all the time in the world to think about things that I want to do or what interests me, rather than if I sort of like I'm just going to nip out just now and take a few photos around the village, and then it doesn't quite sort of excite me in that sort of way.
Yeah. I mean, it's still photography of a wee Scottish village would still be interesting to some people, and I think I'm pretty sure there is a woman who does really well at that, just taking photographs of village life, but I guess it's that combination of passion, internal, like what drives me, as the creator, for cars and that kind of lifestyle. Rather than village life, little old ladies with the bags.
Yeah, but for example, there are places where I stay where I would like to put a supercar. I know exactly where I position it. I know exactly where I'll take the photograph from when I get that opportunity. In that sense, to get something just because of where the location is, and I've tried doing it a couple of times with my own Porsche, but it doesn't. It needs the Lamborghini Ferrari to make it fit into the aesthetic of the picture that I have in mind.
Yeah.
But it's
I watched the 2009 Gumball actually last night. I don't know why. I think I can't even remember if it was anything to do with this, but it certainly made me think back to like 2009. I bought it on iTunes, I think, when it was like a movie. So it's really dead grainy because it's like, it was small. I think it was one like my first or second movie off iTunes at the time. And I was just watching it, and it had Pritch in it, but Dayton and Rich weren't in there. I think it must have been the first time Pritch did it. Butsy was there, and the Fuel Girls, I think it was, that they were with the Fuel Girls manager, another guy called Rich. But yeah, it was just
is that when they skate on
with the sandals.
Sandals.
Yes, yeah. Oh, it just made me cringe. Oh, just even watching it just makes me cringe. Just the thought of it, like my curves. Even now, my toes are curling just thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, like going on to Sanchez stuff. Like I never really liked Sanchez because I'm so squeamish, like with that stuff. Like even thinking about it, I can feel it, and so I could never watch any of their stuff, like the nail guns and the staplers through the ears and whatever else. I could never watch any of that. But fundamentally, where they originated from, the skate world ethos of have a go, which is kind of what me and my brother were talking about last week, it's that mentality. So we liked Jackass, and we liked Sanchez from the point of view that they were once skaters and they were prepared to have a go. What we found, obviously, over time, Dayton found that people responded more to the the other stuff than just the skating, which I thought was interesting. Just doubling down, I guess, on what gets you views. That's what content strategy is, right?
Yeah, but think back to then. That's a lot of that is pre-social media, or it is pre-social media, because I did watch Sanchez, but not in an in-depth sort of way. It was a large part of that sort of FHM culture and sort of lads mags, and I watched a lot of MTV back then in the sense of I quite liked the music, letting just the music run and watching the videos. I quite like music videos, and you then have MTV Cribs and all that sort of stuff, and then it would develop into sort of the late night watching of things like Sanchez and stuff. But that was all pre-social media in that sense. And I often think to myself that if I'd just been 10 years younger, 10, 15 years younger, I would have ridden a different wave in terms of social media and things like that.
Yeah.
And creativity, and I might have got, if Instagram had been around when I was 30, or maybe I was, no, it wasn't really, round about then, I might be more interested in getting photographs up and trying harder to sort of do something with it. But yeah, it's that sort of, I'm not that interesting. So, you know what I mean? So I was very standoffish from social media for a long time until I then started doing it from a sort of a professional kind of perspective in terms of doing the whole prison lawyer stuff and being involved in campaigns about this and that and the law and stuff, and then just sort of using that as a platform on Twitter, which kind of died a death with Twitter in that sense. But and also, you can be a voice for so long and not have to keep it up in that sense.
Yeah, Twitter. I don't know,
but that right.
Go.
No, on you go.
No, I was going to say I don't know what I think about Twitter. I did love it. I was there early. It worked for me at that early days from a business perspective. But and I even, going back to Instagram, I even remember signing up to Instagram, playing with it for like a week, and then deleting it because it was just at the time. It was like everyone was loading photographs of food and things, like, I'm used to eating this. And then, probably a couple of years later, it just came back with a vengeance. It was almost like this, like a tidal wave of like usage, to the point where obviously then, we get in touch.
It's never ending.
Yeah. Your light. Is it coming through your window?
Yeah, but the point is, the window is behind me, and no matter where I move, it is there. There you go.
Yeah, that'll do.
It's better.
Right. So
we can edit round that somehow.
Yeah. We'll go back to Instagram.
Instagram, I always viewed as a very safe place. There's nothing bad happens on Instagram, right? Nobody's really rude to you. There's not a lot of politics, or the politics that there is very well designed, in the sense it's well designed posts with some aesthetic to it or a video to it, that it's rather than just sort of throwaway anger comments here and there. So it always seemed like a very safe space. And then again, I imagine sort of round about that times when I suppose brands like Gumball are coming to the fore on these forums and stuff. They're coming away from what would have been forums that you would discuss things about in the old school way, or following websites or things like that. And then what I got on Instagram was a collection of people who were interested in cars, arty things in terms of street arty things, and Gumball. And through that, as I say, I meet you, I met AJ through that, and there's a whole bunch of other people who I'm acquainted with who do Gumball. And from that point of view, who's the stage right?
Daryl. One second. How are you doing? Yeah, I am. One second. You all right? Yeah. Well, we should do a podcast, Daryl. Yeah, let's do it. All right. Cheers, mate. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so you do meet all these people through Instagram, and again, for a long time, there was a real vibe, particularly around Gumball and those sorts of things, and sort of car influencers and all that sort of stuff, where people were really interacting, making friendships, and having a lot of banter. And I can't decide for me whether I've grown out of it or whether actually it's changed.
Yeah.
Because I'm less present on Instagram as myself, in that sense, than I once was. I used to be able to see what people have done. I now it was somebody's birthday the other day in our group, and I went onto their Instagram and thought, oh, let me say happy birthday privately through that. And then realised I hadn't liked a post of his. And a really interesting guy. I hadn't liked a post of his since like September 2025.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and there was hundreds of them that I hadn't seen or just I'd just come away from scrolling there.
Yeah.
And part of that might be because I've spent a lot of time sort of trying to
Do other things.
develop Sebastian's online presence for his go-karting, and maybe that's where I've been, and I kind of went across to TikTok for that and spent quite a lot of time on TikTok as him in that sense, as in developing his content and stuff for that. Yeah. But it's interesting. At some point in time, it's kind of again changed a little bit.
Yeah,
the interactions with people, and I also then think it maybe is because you start following more people, so your feed is now diluted with lots and lots of things. So if somebody that you're really friendly with only posts once in 6 weeks, you're not seeing it. You're actually having to go seek out people to say, "Oh, I need to remind myself of that." There are people I interact every day with on Instagram, primarily because they come up on the stories. And again, it's maybe how you utilise Instagram. You watch the stories and then you think to yourself, "Oh God, I've done enough watching your stories. I can't really scroll through the feed now." So interactions have changed. Me and you don't interact on Instagram really, other than to send us the odd thing. We've now moved our friendship into the WhatsApp world in that sense.
Yeah.
So I kind of find the whole social media thing's really, really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
In that sense. And again, as I said earlier, I think that if you're 10, 15 years earlier, I might have been riding a different wave of excitement and doing things. I might have been that guy who said, "I'm actually going to have a YouTube channel," or "I might going to do this," or "I might do something with my photography," or "I might actually learn how to properly edit the hours of video that I take on my phone into something which is a little bit more constructive than it is in that sense." So.
Yeah, I would say that social media has actually changed. I think I posted not that long ago that out of 27 posts, I think it was like 9 of them were adverts. And then just yesterday I opened it and all I got was advert, advert, advert. Then it was suggestion, and then like one person, the piece of content that I followed purposefully just appeared. And the thing is, so when you're saying, "Oh, I'm getting fed up of like scrolling," because you're not seeing the people that you're following, you're seeing all the other interruptive stuff, And for me, I feel obviously Instagram have taken that interest model. You're into snowboarding, you will like these videos. I do like them. Thanks, Instagram. But I also followed a load of people because I want to follow them. Please, can I have like 2 threads? One which is interest and one which is people, and just people that I want to follow. Because, like you say, you just lose touch. And I go through it's the exact same thing as you said. Go through people, you think, "Oh, I haven't seen their stuff in a while." And then there's like 5 posts and you go, "How did they even get past me?" Like, I have no idea how I haven't seen those, but I haven't. So, yeah, it's definitely changed as an actual, algorithm and a model. And I think that's what pushes you off the site. Like your attention goes to other things, not to the people and the group or the passion that you're actually, like when we're talking about Gumball, you just miss it all. And I mean, I don't even know about Gumball myself, whether or not their content level has dropped as well. Like they're not on there as much as they were.
I think it's the opposite.
Is it?
Because again, there are again, it's posts I don't see any longer.
Right.
And I think the last Gumball was the hardest one that I've ever had to follow, because it was just trying to find the right places to go and find the right things, the things that interested me about it.
Yeah.
Because there was either a saturation of it or it just didn't fall together. But in fact, the main feed in terms of Gumball was kept constantly up to date and with reasonably good content in that sense. It was, it's a difficult one, sort of like you have following hashtags and trying to find the things to try and again try and find those images that excite you.
Yeah. Oh, right. Let's move on to something because we're mindful of the time as well. Let's move on to your social media career. Oh, we've just been talking about social media. What do I mean? I mean about all the things that you're developing at the moment. So, James, you have a. So obviously you're developing Seb as a channel. So Seb is your son who's go karting, and passionate about that. He wants to, Seb wants to do something with the karting, doesn't he? But then also alongside of that, you've got another channel as well. So why don't you talk about both of those and the kind of things that you're doing and the things that you've learned? Maybe there's something that that you can impart in terms of like tidbits.
In terms of, obviously, Sebastian is go karting, and we're presently doing some sort of rental karting at Team Sport. And he goes to his race academy on the on a Sunday morning. We are planning to race in the Daniel Ricciardo series, which is another arrive and drive sort of series of rental karting, which will take place pretty much every month from May to September. And he has an interest in YouTube. Like, I suppose many kids, they either want to be YouTubers or they want to spend time watching YouTube. And he's fascinated by the process of it. Trying to do YouTube, trying to learn about it. I think I'm bored of of the content that we're creating because there are only so many angles at this particular track that we can do things. So it probably either has to escalate in terms of gear, of getting the sort of the Insta 360 and sticking on the cart or the helmet or doing something. And it also probably either requires me or him to learn how to edit without the assistance of AI and sort of just have a little bit more creativity to it in that sense. But those all filter onto TikTok and onto Instagram with a view to ultimately trying to grow a following for them, because in terms of motorsport, as you well know, there's two ways to fund these things. You either fund it yourself or hope that somebody else wants to assist in funding it. And if he wants to develop it if he does want to take it somewhere, it will need some assistance going forward. And again, everywhere you read this, you can have all the ability in the world, but if you don't have a presence, a social media presence, it makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
So again, it's about trying to develop that and trying to understand that world of how we might get sponsorship through it, aside from talent, just putting all that aside, put talent aside and say, okay, if you develop this, could you get sponsorship through it? No matter where you are, unless you're at the pinnacle, there's always somebody more talented than you. Unless you're Max Verstappen or Lando Norris or that top 20 or 22 that they are now, you're what you call it. There's always somebody going to be better than you. There's always somebody who's going to manage to either get a foothold either for one of two reasons, knowing somebody, money, or just good old luck in that sense. It's an interesting world. I'm trying and understand from a perspective of how to make it work for him, but maybe trying to find a way for it to work for others as well.
Yeah, and it is a balance, I think, with motorsport. In like with any sport, if we're I don't really see the same in football because I don't really understand football from that perspective, but within motorsport, as you say, there's two key elements. One is talent, the ability to drive fast, get results. But you can still be fast and not have a great car. So you kind of probably have a good car as well. But I think if you've got the talent and they can see you've got the talent to hustle a car, to make the right decisions, etc., then you'll get the right car. You'll get into that seat. But again, I think in this modern era that ultimately the reason why someone would be interested in giving you money for you to play, which is essentially what it is, right, is that they get eyeballs. There's a lot of training that goes on for that media that media speak and stuff, and that's really ultimately, it's all about reputation. It's all about, managing themselves, from a press point of view, so that they can be the voice of a brand, be the voice of, so that Red Bull or, a bank or a, financial, multi-million pound corporation doesn't feel embarrassed by the fact that they just said the word on TV or something, so they're trained, which sometimes I do wonder if that's actually good for a child, like to give them all these walls, that, like, you're not allowed to do this, and this, like, is there some point at which they miss out? And I've had many a conversation with people at various levels of motorsport, and it doesn't always work for the child, because the child eventually becomes an adult, right? And some of those adults display traits that are not necessarily ones that we want in society, because the adults thought that giving their child, this framework would be good, and it was good for the sport, but maybe not necessarily for them as a human. So yeah, I think for me, I just, with Alex's driving, grassing is never going to be autograss. That is, just in case anyone's wondering what that is. It's a family sport, and it's fun. It's enjoyable. It's never gonna, Al doesn't want to be an F1 driver. There was a moment in time when that was, a thing, but now he's like, I just want to be an F1 mechanic. He wants to play in that arena, but he don't want to be the driver anymore. He realizes, what it takes to get there.
And again, Sebastian's go-karting, he really enjoys it. If he said tomorrow he would give it up, it'd be like, oh well, that's fine. You know what I mean? That's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. But I also think really good just about to sort of go to the local go-kart track, whether it is to have fun, is that it's the most supportive environment I think I've ever seen in sport is motorsport. People want to beat each other.
Yeah.
But the fun these kids have off the track with each other as well is just amazing. And it's bizarrely, the vast majority of parents understand that the competition there's two competitions going on. The child's competition with themselves just to do better, and the occasional competition that happens when it turns into in that race environment. But the competition isn't between the parents. And it's certainly the group of friends he's got, we all want them to do well. We all want them to go out and do really well. But there's been times where, even just the other week, for example, Sebastian's been chasing a PB forever. It's like, I think since July of last year, it has just been stuck, and it's for various reasons. One, because he programmed his brain with regard to one part of the track to do it in a particular way,
Right.
which was just wrong in terms of time. But it was also because he spent a number of weeks just getting a bad car, right? Some rental cars are poor, and that's it. But he beat his PB, and he beat it well. And one of the dads came running up to him. He'd screenshotted his PB in case it wasn't on the TV, in case we missed it. He'd go, look. You mean another dad coming across to congratulate him, because we're all kind of a little bit invested in how everybody's getting on. Like, some of his other wee pals are off owner karts, off racing outdoors, that they're taking it to another level. But one of his wee pals' dads said, listen, I've got a spare cart. We'll stick Sebastian in and have him come down and have a go at it. You know what I mean? Not leaving him out in that sense. And which I thought was great, because it didn't need to do that. You know what I mean? It was kind, supportive, it was encouraging, but it was also like, no, Sebastian's a kid, let him come along with us and let's just do that. So it's a really different environment to operate in, as opposed to things I've been involved in the past, like football and things like that, where everything's just competitive, and it's quite an interesting environment to be in. in that sense. And the kids all seem they want to be competitive with each other, but they're not wanting to be horrible about it in that sense. It's not like I'm better than you or I've beaten you or anything like that. It might be, I won today, and it's like, good on you.
Yeah.
You won today. Somebody else might win another time. I might never win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just have to look at Nico Hulkenberg and go, well, actually, he's proof positive. He's proof positive. You might never win, but it's not about being able to drive the fastest lap in qualifying. It is for various competitive reasons. It is about driving the fastest lap in qualifying. But the point being is, I think I read somewhere, anybody can pull a fastest lap out of nowhere. It's about the consistency of being able to go around that track at the same time over and over and over again without there being a fluctuation here or there and all that.
Yeah, well,
so
that's it.
It's an interesting world.
Yeah, that is Max and them, isn't it? You know, like Lewis in his heyday. I still think we've got more from Lewis, but I think it's the perfection. Every single lap, to the letter, whatever the letter is, because we don't always know what the letters are. Like they're on the comms saying we need you fast on this one, we need you slow on this one, safe here, whatever. But yeah, that's what I think makes the top class, because everybody can be fast. I can be fast in the right car, but it's the fact that these guys hit it on the like every single corner, everything's the same, and it's like perfection. Yeah, it is amazing, really. But coming back to winning and all that kind of stuff, Alex hasn't won anything yet, but he I think he got like a third or a second or something like that. I can't remember. And I was really happy for him. But I think, like at the moment, Nick's very, she wants him to enjoy it, because she came into the sport when she was slightly older than Alex is. And, like early on, she did well. And both her parents have raced. Both are pretty good. Like they both ended up winning like a nationals, like a men's nationals and a ladies nationals. And her brother was good as well. And she just went on to be good. The most successful the lady in the British Autograss Series. Ever. Like across the board over the 30 years that it's existed. Because she's basically just been consistent and gone out. But what I love about my wife is that she is so magnanimous as well. She is the best winner and the best loser. If she loses, she's just so good with them. Like with the winners, she's just like, oh yeah, that was a great race, well done. Like even though she got, maybe even sometimes when she gets taken out, and sometimes these people take you out on purpose, she's just so magnanimous about it. And yet she's also a great winner. She don't want to rub it in her face. She don't ever really celebrate it. She's just amazing, really, when I think about it. Because I would be complete opposite. I'll be like, yes.
I got it, Yeah, he sometimes when he gets his PB wants to run around screaming his head off that he's got it, but often he's been waiting a while for it to happen. So it's this sort of rush of energy that comes from it.
Yeah, it's definitely that, I think.
But it's a fun environment to be in. So
yeah. So then, like, let's wrap this up. What's the plans for the future then? So obviously we'd all love to do Gumball, but I think that ship has sailed. We could have maybe done it 20 years ago, maybe when we were a bit younger, like AJ. I think AJ probably got on the last one that we could have afforded, and I think it sort of just crept up every year since then. So, but
it creates an interesting debate, that question. One, it's the money.
Yeah.
Okay, because you've got to think to yourself, it's a minimum of £100,000 for a week.
Yeah.
And you also need a holiday after it.
Yeah.
So you're talking $100,000, and can you? My social conscience possibly struggles with that.
Yeah.
In the sense of, you blow that sort of money, and there are people out there who actually are really struggling. So there's part of me that struggles with that. But see, back in the beginning when it was expensive in a different way. It was expensive because I didn't have that sort of money to do when I was sitting. I think the time that I got invited, 2017, 16, 17. I think the entry fee was 34 grand, so it would have been 17,000 with somebody else. Still a big chunk of money for a holiday, but probably palatable to an extent, because that doesn't even include the car or insurance or any other things, right? But the other thing that it creates in the debate, there's all of them, can I spend the money? But I'm not. I still love Gumball. Still love how it is. It's morphed into something completely different from what I originally fell in love with.
Yeah.
And what I originally fell in love with was the sort of slightly outlaw nature of it.
Yep.
The trying to, rather than making sure everybody knows you're there, trying to make sure everybody doesn't really know you're there, and trying to fly under the radar with it a bit. And the sort of the camaraderie is all still there.
Yeah.
That's all still amongst it. No matter what it is, it's still always going to be there. But it is whether Gumball is different from what I fell in love with.
Yeah.
And that's why when we did Run to the Sun, that was closer to what I think the Gumball I would want to do is.
Yeah.
No huge fanfare, right? And trying to get from A to B
as low key as
without too much noise, as low key as possible, but having a lot of fun in what we're doing as we're going, in that sense. So then you then sort of question in your mind, if somebody said come and do Gumball for free, you'd go, oh, great. You then question in your mind, if you had the money, would you? But there's also the other thing is that people then say to you, it's that you're not just buying the experience of a week on the road doing that and being a rock star for that time. It's about you buy into a network of people.
Yeah.
And I once had somebody posted it on saying, I mean, if you ever find yourself, the only WhatsApp group you want to ever find yourself in is the Gumball 3000 WhatsApp group, because there is nothing in that group you can't get.
Yeah.
You have a problem, there is somebody in that group who can fix it.
Yeah.
If you're going to a particular country and need advice on something, they're able to do that for you. If you need hospitality, if you need, as well as the sort of network of sort of trying to maybe do business and interact. So I imagine that's what you kind of buy into as well when you pay that entry fee. You're buying into that sort of network of people. But equally so, we have met lots of these people who, at the very least, are very good acquaintances, if not friends, through Gumball, having never done it.
Yeah. I think it's
we have some really, we collectively have some really good friendships, acquaintances that have done Gumball. You mean you build interesting friendships through these sorts of things.
Yeah.
I mean, when we did Run to the Sun, it's developed over the years into. I mean, AJ's developed his own sort of group of people, and again, a collection of people who answer questions, who are willing to want to do business together, who want to share stories or want to go on holiday, or if you happen to be in Berlin, you might go see Einar or wherever. I mean,
I think that the rally experience is like a forge for creating relationships. Like it's the people that you don't know, speak a different language to you, and by the end of that week, like you can drop a WhatsApp message, to any of them at any point if you wanted to, because you've just basically created this bond over a week. And then if you do more road rallies with them, then obviously that just grows, because then there's an influx of new people, and obviously these older people from the last one, so that bond gets stronger as well. But yeah, I mean, it is literally like the like the summer camp thing with school, right? You don't get that as an adult. You don't get to basically spend time with people you don't know, right? When you're other than work, So yeah, I think it is a really unique experience to do these road trips, and I don't think everyone, like you look at it, you can look from the outside and think it's all about rich people doing rich people things, and of course there is some of those, something has to activate that, but actually they're just people, and that's one of the interesting things that you find is that they're not, they're just normal. Most people are just normal.
Yeah.
So,
but going forward, whether it's, I think ultimately for me, you're probably in a similar situation at the moment where going forward, it's family, it's giving Sebastian the experiences. I don't like to say the experiences I didn't have, but because I had different experiences I did a lot of travelling with family when we were growing up. So I got lots of experiences like that. I wasn't involved in motorsport in that sense. So he's getting an opportunity of something that I might like to have done in that sense, but I always wonder if that's in hindsight, because really that whole idea of, I think if I was 15 again, or going back to when I was 15, I wanted to be a professional skateboarder. I wasn't very good at it.
Yeah.
You have to have these honest conversations in your mind. Why didn't I become a professional skateboarder? Because actually I wasn't that good at it. And again, I think with all of that, at that age, it was all about getting it comes back to the Sanchez conversation. That was all done on VHS and videotape and skate shops and all that. And yet you got the latest skate video from America and you watched it and go, oh, how did they do that? Rather than now, if you wanted to become a skateboarder now, you could set up a whole bunch of YouTube and it would say, this is how you do an ollie, this is how you do a grind, this is what you need to do, this is, rather than trying to figure out yourself, you can actually find ways now through social media, through YouTube, how to actually do certain things without the trial and error that we maybe did as kids. Whether it's skateboarding or snowboarding or skiing or whatever. So I do sometimes, again, it's like you think to yourself, oh, if I was 10, 15 years out, things, not things would be different, because things will,
there's
an element of things end up the way they are because they are, in that sense.
You default to who you are, right, ultimately, and then the experiences around you also congeal around the person that you are as well, because like motorsport for me, I could never get into motorsport because of my family, because we go to church when I was a kid, like Sundays, which is when motorsport was, I was never able to access it. I love cars, motorsport, I want to be part of it, but it was just never going to happen. And now I'm that adult, that allows my child to do it.
And we've discovered the routes in to do it, where our parents might not have known the routes in. They might have known the routes into other things in life for us, but not that particular thing. And you now have a route in. Okay, we do karting, and then we'll try a little bit of this. And then we see how it goes. He might, like everything else, he may lose interest in that, and that's fine. We move on to something else. But I think some of the constants for Sebastian will always be that he wants to do stuff on YouTube.
Yeah,
that's my fault, because I'm fascinated by it, how it works, and how. It took me a long time to see the smoke and mirrors with it all, in that sense of how it worked. But again, it was building a following, and then essentially doing brand deals and sponsorship to continue doing what you want, what you like doing. So it's again the same thing as the go-karting or anything else. It's trying to find somebody else to pay you to do what you want to do.
Yeah,
you need to become that go-to guy, and that's just how it is.
Yeah,
and I created the go-to guy in terms of the prison lawyer. It is what I do. I do it well.
Yeah.
I'm not being conceited. I do it well. I try my best. I want to do it well. I may moan to you on a daily basis, oh, I can't do this, but it's tiring. It's hard work. But do I love it? Yeah. Would I give? I sit on that fence of saying, do I want to give this up? Yeah, when it's tiring, but in reality, can I see myself doing anything else? Would I derive any greater enjoyment out of doing some other area of law? Probably not, because ultimately, I like to help people who are considered in one view to be the underdog in the game.
Yeah, and you've told me, not outside of lawyer privilege or anything, but you've told me some of the experiences that you've had in the past. It's not a job I want to do, so I thank you for being available as a servant of the people, as a lawyer, the Scottish people, I will say. But it's not something. I'm so glad I get to just make pictures. My life's just it. Really, it's rosy. I don't have to come across anything difficult or unpleasant really at all. So yeah. Right, James. Well, on that bombshell, let's wrap it up. In terms of, I know obviously you've got some plans for the future for things, but basically I would imagine you will say the best place to keep in touch with you is your Instagram, and then anything that comes out in the future would probably be going on there, right?
Any developments that arise will be all on sort of my Instagram. But as I say, I've taken a slight step back from things about me, and they're more about Sebastian at the moment. But we'll see how that sort of develops.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you just you pushing a meeting back as well for me, so I appreciate that, mate. Thank you very much. Actually, then we get in touch.
It's never ending. We can edit round that somehow.
Yeah. We'll go back to Instagram.
Yeah.
I can't even remember where I was going with it, to be honest. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Right, let's.
These can be the bloopers.
Yeah, I left a couple in on my brother's one.